Namaskar. Good afternoon to all of you here, ladies and gentlemen, especially those who have come, who are logged in from outside the country, and those from here, from different parts and cities of this country. Well, where do I start? Let me put it this way. In January of 2019, less than maybe 4 months after his demise in September 2018, we had our first Mahotsav. We had our first annual memorial address in the third week of January. There was no time for mourning. There was and still is time only for rejoicing. He would not have had it any other way, nor will many of us who resonate with his values suggest any other way of doing this. Since then, the Prem Smaran or Prem Sumiran has come a long way. His Smaran echoes some place or other in our many cities and in the hearts of thousands who cherish the brush of greatness and simplicity that Prem Jain represented over the 50 years of his active professional life. That brush of greatness is something that a lot of us will remember. Just now we heard Mr. V. Suresh, the chairperson of the Indian Green Building Council, who represents many other things in the country today for industry, saying that architect KT Ravindran knew him for all of 49 or 50 years. And that is something that we will look forward to when KT speaks a little later today, this afternoon. What is important is that over those 50 years as a professional, he was more known to many of us as a teacher, as someone who galvanized the nicer, softer emotion of putting public purpose before self. He was always proud to be introduced as a teacher. I've seen that happening many times when I had to introduce him too. KT Ravindran will, I'm sure, have anecdotes of his own meetings and fond exchanges at SPA. Professor Viren Paul, who is now presiding over things at SPA in some capacity, who is also a trustee, a founder trustee at the PJMT. And the man who coined the word Mahotsav at one meeting that we were having, I think in December 2018, is another teacher who will have memories to share of Prem Jain as a teacher. When Murad Chowdhury, another legendary architect of the 1970s, passed away last week, Prem Chandavarkar wrote in one of the groups, and Prem is himself among those inspired human beings who happily is alive and with us today. He wrote of Murad Bhai the following. He said he was a teacher at heart. He would often break from work for 30 to 45 minutes and sit down and teach me something that he felt that I, as a young architect, should be learning. Ashish Rakija is here, who was a student of his from 1989 onward or 1990. And I'm sure he's got some stories to tell too. Dr. Prem Jain was much like that, like Murad Bhai. You cannot be a good architect or engineer if you're not a good human being, compassionate, passionate, and imbued with a deep-seated sense of idealism. I remember S. Nihal Singh, who died a little before COVID and who nursed his 2 glasses of single malt every evening until a week of his demise. He took his first job as a journalist in 1947. He would say that if there is anything that was missing for those who are in college today and growing up to life's challenges, it is that sense of idealism. There are many more masters. With the Mahotsav and with all that we do at PJMT, every year, there are over 300 events every year. Trust me on that. We pay our tribute and our deep respect to these masters and for the deep and abiding values they all have stood for. There was a Sant Tyagaraja who was a Tamil poet who wrote in Telugu, and he sang one song, an immortal song called Endiro Mahanubhavulu. All of these great masters and my deep respects and obeisance to them was how the song went. In a moment, I'll be inviting all to join us for a rendition of the national anthem. Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchala Jaladita Ranga, it goes. When Tagore wrote that in 1911, little did he know that more than half of those rivers of that time would dwindle and die in less than 100 years. India continues to have 15,000 rivers with names, with each of them bearing a name and a story behind why it is called what it is called. Some of them are male rivers, some of them are female rivers, and there's a charm to this legend, myth, history, in this great civilization of ours. We are not a country. Bharatavarsha is a civilization, and we all learn to see how we respect that. One doesn't know what begins where and what ends where in this kind of blend of mythology and legend and history and so on. Prem Jain was part of that communion of many millennia. Though he was very secular, by nature he was secular, to practice his religion in terms of rituals and such, in spirit and in soul, he was a monk. He lived unattached while practicing truly and simply with his compassion for all humans. Sanatana Dharma was part of that person in the ways that he lived it. Well, the memorial address afternoon begins now formally. May I request Payal Jain, his dear little daughter, who didn't, I think, see the value that he represented in those years that she had the great privilege of being with him, because he belonged to everybody. He was not a father for her alone. Payal, I will try and see if I can request you now to see how you share some of your thoughts, after which we'll see how the hour moves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Are we going with the national anthem first and then I'm speaking?
I think yes, we could do that. Absolutely, we'll do that. Yeah. Yasin or Pratik, we should take over. And let's see
Bharat Bhagya Vidata
Chal Jaldi Taranga Tav Shubha Naam Jane Tab Subh Aashish Mange Gahe Tav Jaya Gatha
do you have to have a lamp lighting, or we move to you speaking on your father and what he meant to you?
We'll start with the lamp lighting, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Firstly, I want to express my gratitude to our eminent speakers today, to Dr. Doshi, who is not live with us, but has been kind enough to record his sentiments and his thoughts and words of encouragement and send us. Architect KT Ravindran, thank you very much. Looking forward to your session very much. Gaurav, super exciting to have you here. I'm sure all our young people are waiting to hear from you. Thank you for joining PJMT in this green movement. We're very honored and privileged to have you all here on the 4th Prem Jain Memorial Address. I want to thank the entire PJMT family. I call them family now, and that's how I feel. and the IGBC family for their faith, trust, and belief in the work we have been doing since 2018. None of this would have been possible without you. As the wise monk Thich Nhat Hanh said, and he recently left his body, I'm sure you have all read that in media, in news, everywhere. As he said, this body is not me. I am not caught in this body. I am life without boundaries. I have never been born and will never die. Since the beginning of time, I have been free. Birth and death are doors through which we go in and out, a game of hide and seek. So smile to me, take my hand, and tomorrow we shall meet again at the true source on the myriad paths of life. I see him in every sunset, every flower, every leaf and every tree, every star in the sky, my father, my guru, my guide, my best friend, my soulmate, and the foundation stone of my existence. I'm very blessed and grateful. Every moment that I've had with him to be his daughter has been the greatest gift of my life. Dr. Prem Jain, my father, for those of you who do not know, when I look back at my childhood, I know that everything I am today and everything I believe in is because of the unconditional faith and love that he gave me. He believed in everything I did, no matter how hard I fell, no matter how unsuccessful I was, where I failed, but he was in my corner, always, always just believing. And I think that is what all of us need, is faith and love, unconditionally, to succeed in whatever we want to do. Today also, I feel inspired every single day in PJMT, and all of you here have continued inspiring me in your own special ways. For those of you who did not know Dr. Jain, I'd like to share that he lived on the path of dharma, justice, integrity, truth, and humility. Everything he did was with purpose and intention, commitment, dedication, kindness, and compassion. That's what made him so special to people who were attached to him or who associated with him. He loved unconditionally and lived each moment to the fullest in complete gratitude. I sometimes find it hard even to go through one day in gratitude. He lived his whole life in gratitude. He knew the art of giving, be it love, hope, advice, or help. And he inspired his family, co-workers, colleagues, students, getting involved in everybody's personal lives, guiding them selflessly. I would get on flights with him and he would meet students from 30 years ago and he would remember their name, their families, what they were doing, what their challenges had been, where they were. It was just amazing. I mean, if I can be even 2% of that, I think, my life would be worthwhile. He led by example in his life and created history through his transition from the world by taking Santhara, which, as we Jains believe, ends the cycle of birth and death. And I know he's somewhere up there looking down at us, this big, bright, shining star. It is my earnest hope to continue the path he gave us through Prem Jain Memorial Trust. And I want to really specially thank from the bottom of my heart the PJMT family, each of whom have become very, very close. And they mean more to me today than if I had siblings or if I had extended families, which I don't. I'm an only child, so you are my family. And thank you very much to each one of you for walking this talk and for making this possible. Your enthusiasm, your faith, your conviction, everything has brought PJMT to where we are today. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to our audience for joining us today. I'll now invite Mr. Chirag Bejal, Managing Director, Carrier India, who is our Board of Governors and has been very actively involved in driving PJMT. Over to you, Chirag. Thank you.
Namaskar, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Payal. This is so touching about what you've shared of Dr. Jain. Fondly remembered as the father of the green building movement in India, we gather today in the memory of Dr. Jain, and more importantly, to remind ourselves of the generosity, kindness, ambition, and love for our motherland, Bharat. Each one of us has a reason to be here today and to carry the flag, as I say, hoisted by Dr. Jain. This flag, to me, represents conscientious steps in addressing our aspirations to become a developed country, espousing sustainability as a value rather than a metric or a task to be done, and to keep reminding ourselves that we have borrowed the resources from our children and not inherited them. My why today is clearer than ever before in being here It is to understand the implications of this movement that Dr. Jain started for the future of our country, the industry to which I belong, which is the HVAC industry in specific, and of course, the future generations at large. I'm here to do my bit to honor Dr. Jain by paying forward the values and beliefs learned through him. He believed and knew ahead of most others that India would urbanize and fast. We must learn from the mistakes of the countries which struggle today with inefficient buildings, where it is not only expensive but impossible to retrofit them now, let's say for the next 50 years of their life. Hence, when we build our future in India, we must do it more responsibly. Respect, as he said, is earned through knowledge. And for this, in the industry which we belong to uplift the standards of livelihood and command respect, we must harness the power of knowledge. Democratize this amongst our less skilled workforce through teaching, handholding, and coaching. Lastly, the demographic dividend, as we call in India, of the young India, is the best bet we have in turning the tide and fast. Let us resolve and stay steadfast, because we, the people of this green movement, are a force to reckon with, and we will make it count and do Dr. Jain proud. Thank you, and it's a privilege to be here.
My why is clearer than ever before, Chirag. Thank you for that. While said, he was in my corner always. Very, very lovely thoughts and lines there. Well, I'll turn to Ashish Rakecha. You worked, you served, whatever, you enjoyed his relationship from 89 to what, 2015, I think, a long time. And he was the first employer for you and perhaps the last. Ashish, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hariharan, and namaskar, everyone. When I was asked to talk about Dr. Jain, I said, I'll first write down something. Then I thought that if I have to write down something for a person, the only guru that I have known in my lifetime spent 2 decades of working with him, I said, that'll be a shame. I have to talk from my heart. My entry, and I know today there are a lot of youngsters on the call today, listening to what we are saying. My entry into the air conditioning industry or the electromechanical industry was thanks to Dr. Jain. He spotted me and he said, when I was in my 3rd year of engineering, he said, this is where you have to be. I was one of those fortunate ones who knew what I'm going to do in my 3rd year of engineering. And I can bet on you, many of you would not even know, even after passing out from the college, what are you going to do? I was fortunate. I was blessed. I was guided by him from the day one. In fact, from the point that as a youngster, 2 years into the industry, learned the fundamentals, and I was asked to face the clients. Learn the ropes harder way. And that is what became the basics. And it's not for me alone. Dr. Jain believed in youth, he believed in talent, and this is what he kept doing. He guided me through the 2 decades of my being with him, associated professionally. Whenever he felt I was going away from the path of what he used to call dharma, I used to get a reminder, a letter, a gentle rebuke in a form that put me back on the path. He had a vision to start the air conditioning society in India called ISHRE. 1980-81, we started the society, not even knowing what like many of us couldn't even imagine. And today, ISHRE is the 5th largest technical society in the world in the air conditioning industry. This is what he created. He stood for students. It was all about teaching, whether it was us in the office or it was what he used to go to the institutions. It was all about teaching. He used to fly down at early morning flights and be there for the students whenever the classes were there. I never saw him missing a class. He stood for youth in the office also. The first priority was to bring youngsters, keep bringing in the younger blood, and educate them and give them opportunities. The opportunities were there for everyone. The man had an amazing memory. As earlier also Dr. Hariharan and Payal especially said, he remembered every name, not only of the person, but of the family, of the children, of the wives, and that made him an instant connection wherever he went. And that only comes from the point that you carry the conviction in your heart. He had an amazing memory. He never carried a phone. Being running the topmost company in India, imagine from all top corporates being his client, he never carried a phone. He said, when I'm out there, my time belongs to the company or to the person with whom I am. That's his conviction. He always ended his meetings with a warm embrace. Those warm hugs were reserved were there for everyone. Whether it's a client, whether it's us, we used to get that from him. Till date, I can tell you, it's been now nearly 4 years that we lost him. We still, any meeting, professional meeting that I go to, we start our meeting by remembering the person. Now, what made him that special is what we all have to think. In a world, in an industry which is very crowded, there are thousands of us. Construction industry itself is one of the largest employers in India. What made that man special? I think it's a thing for us to all learn. I'm happy that today, in his remembrance, we celebrate the week, the Mahotsav as we call it, and where the participation comes not only from individuals, but also from the companies, from societies, technical societies. Each one of them carry out programs in his memory, and there is no reason for them to do that, but else the sheer respect that we carry for the person. His life was like a teacher, was a hermit in his own way, and a person who has stood as an inspiration for all of us. So thank you very much. I'm very fortunate to have been associated with him, and hope you have a good Mahotsav and a good seminar. It's good talk today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish. Professor Viren Paul, while of course you will launch the PJMT Fellowship Program, can I request you to speak of some of those anecdotal things that come to your mind when you think of Prem Jain, and then move on to the fellowship itself?
Thank you, Dr. Hari. Namaskar, esteemed speakers, my former senior colleague, KT Ravindran, the august audience, and most respected community of Dr. Jain admirers. He has been a teacher all throughout, and this is one credit that one earns, and even after one has left this world, the credit still stays with him. And he's been my teacher. It was in 1985 when we started our journey. And although he was formally my teacher for a period of about one semester, but till the last session that he engaged in the School of Planning and Architecture, I had the privilege and the pleasure of sitting in his most of the classes as the student. And if he's there, and I would make sure that I would also join most of the time, unless I'm not required. I'm required to be elsewhere. And I would say that over a period of time, his lectures were always up to date. I mean, very rarely one would find that he's repeating what he was talking last time. And most of his sharing were very up to date. And very envious thing about him is that I still cannot fathom how, being a practicing professional, he could attract so much of love and affection of the students in the class, and with so much of a warmth. Even as a teacher for last, we called ourselves teachers, and even being a teacher for so many years now, I still cannot, figure out how he could, have, got those qualities, which is so divine for anyone. And we look forward to these qualities as academics all the time. I mean, it's an amazing commitment that he had. All students were his favorite students, and that was very unique. I can't say that I was the favorite student or anybody else was a student. The student world is so favorite for him, and anybody who's asking question is always welcome. And unlike many of our us who still get irritated with frequent nagging on the same subject, an exceptional quality, and very privileged to have him in our life. We discussed this issue of carrying the legacy of Dr. Jain further. And what we came up with an idea of promoting excellence in academic pursuits in the area of sustainability, especially in this country of ours. We have decided to launch Prem Jain Memorial Trust scholarships, so that we can continue his legacy in the area of academics, and the scholarships would be on a specific area of sustainability, of course, and we are not trying to limit it to the architecture. Of course, the nuances of the scholarship will be looked at, but we are very sure that the next year we would we be announcing the recipients of these scholarships, and the main three areas that we plan to look at, and which were very, very dear to Dr. Jain. One is the sustainability practices, Indic sustainability practices, and he was so proud and always talked about Indian wisdom on sustainability. So we want to keep that Indic sustainability practices at the forefront whenever we are looking at the possible candidates and their research areas. This could be for bachelor's and master's or even PhD, looking at the kind of a commitment they have on a particular subject. And the second one, which was very close to his heart, was climate change and its impact mitigation. We are looking at the scholarship, at a national level, appropriate to his stature, and we will have esteemed selection committee and the process, which will be at par with anybody else that can think of anywhere else in the world. The most important part in the scholarship is not to leave it at the scholarship alone, but we are definitely looking at the possibility and some way forward for utilizing of the scholarly work produced by such scholarships, so that the repository of the knowledge that these scholarships bring is there for us in this country of ours to share and promote academics. Of course, one can pursue higher studies and career elsewhere in the world, but we want to bring back that to our academic institutions, and that's where we would like to leave not just the scholarship alone as an important area, but how we carry that forward by way of dissemination, or bringing that outcome into some kind of an entrepreneur undertakings or patents or India-specific proud moments that we can always share and inspire our people. So that's the kind of tribute that we would like to offer to Dr. Jain, and I am very, very thankful to my colleagues in the trust and the members of the board who have very supportingly agreed. And of course, we look forward to the industry to come together with us, and we will be very, very glad to share our achievements in the next year. Thank you very much. All the very best to our speakers.
Thanks, Dr. Paul. You're running about 9 minutes behind whatever we are. The film on the Prem Jain Memorial Trust, I think it runs about 4.5 to 5 minutes. Yatin, can you run that? Or Pratik, please.
The world is at crossroads as far as the safety and well-being of our ecosystem is concerned. With rampant urbanization, environmental degradation, and grave consequences of climate change, an overall path correction has become imperative to the existence of all living forms on Earth. Should we continue with the abuse of our precious natural resources? Should we use technology and innovation to conserve them? Can we reduce energy usage with a mindful approach and renewable sources? Dr. Prem Jain anticipated many such challenges we are facing today way back in the 70s. Over half a century of dedication and tireless efforts, he thought and spoke a language that was way ahead of its time. His passion and commitment to his Janmabhoomi and to his own mother ran equally deep.
From my earliest childhood, it's been ingrained with me that truth will always win, what we call Satyamev Jayate. She also gave us the love for all living creatures, trees and plants, the message of non-violence. And ever since my childhood, I've always respected that all life forms are equally important.
The last 10 years saw the culmination of his efforts by remarkably shaping the green movement in India, and his countless admirers began to refer to him as father of green buildings in India. The green revolution he started is the foundation of his legacy. In 2018, Prem Jain Memorial Trust was conceived to carry on his mission and founded upon his values, ideals and vision of a greener Bharat. Today, the Trust enjoys guidance of the best minds of the industry, champions of sustainability, corporate change makers and academicians. PJMT is set on its journey to create, establish and maintain sustainability directions through education, recognition and rewards that nurture future generations.
The best gift you can give to the person is educate him or her. Because then, wherever they are, they will be able to earn and flourish in life.
Each year begins with the Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav, a week-long celebration of sustainability, and our annual flagship event, Prem Jain Memorial Address. The Trust organizes a spectrum of green initiatives which fill the week of January 26, Dr. Jain's birthday week. The Mahotsav is celebrated across the country with immense enthusiasm by Green Crusaders and our partner institutions through an array of sustainability-driven initiatives and activities. Having deep roots with Indian Green Building Council, the Trust has worked in tandem with IGBC and its chapters. PJMT takes great pride in partnering with esteemed partner societies, corporate leaders and premier universities across India, working closely with the common mission of creating a greener earth through the year. The Trust is a catalyst for sustainable research and development, sharing innovations and creating a global platform for exchange of thoughts and ideas to nurture future green ambassadors. PJMT has organized more than 300 green initiatives during Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav in association with its esteemed partner societies, corporates and institutions across India, and arranged over 300 online sessions by distinguished speakers and industry change makers on sustainable built environment with participation of more than 5,000 students and working professionals. At this edition of Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav, we invite you to join this green revolution, to build a brighter tomorrow and change the world we will leave behind for our children. If we can change the way we think about buildings, maybe what we build will change the world.
Great. There we are. 38 minutes to the hour. We will catch up, I'm certain, as we go along. Mr. Pava, Mr. Deepak Pava, can I request you to step in and see how you can share some thoughts on Dr. B.V. Doshi?
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. This week we are assembled, during the Mahotsav week, we are assembled to celebrate and recognize Dr. Prem Jain. It's my proud privilege today to introduce to you Mr. Padma Bhushan, Dr. Balakrishnan V. Doshi. He's a fellow of the Royal Institute of British Architects and a fellow of Indian Institute of Architects. After initial study at the J.J. School of Architecture, Bombay, he worked with the Le Corbusier from 51 to 54 in Paris, and then in India to supervise his projects. His office, Vastu Shilpa Environmental Design, was established in 1955 in Ahmedabad. Dr. Doshi has been on the jury of several international and national competitions, including the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts and Aga Khan Award for Architecture. Apart from his international fame as an architect, Dr. Doshi is known as an educator and institution builder. He's the first founder as director of School for Architecture, Ahmedabad, way back in 1962. His first founder director of School of Planning in 1972. First founder dean of Center for Environmental Planning and Technology in 1972. Founder member of Visual Arts Center and first founder director of Kanoria Center of Arts, Ahmedabad. Dr. Doshi has been instrumental in establishing the internationally known research institute Vastu Shilpa Foundation for studies and research in environmental design, with pioneering work in low-cost housing and city planning. In recognition of his distinguished contribution as a professional and as an academician, Dr. Doshi has been honored for his outstanding work with the Padma Bhushan, which is amongst the highest civilian awards in India. He has also received several international and national honors, including the Pritzker Architecture Prize in 2018 and Royal Gold Medal 2022, one of the highest honors for architecture in the world. Once again, it's my proud privilege to have had the opportunity of introducing Padma Bhushan, Dr. Doshi.
There we go. Thank you so much, Mr. Pava. Yatin, to the inaugural address of Dr. B.V. Doshi. The audio, and it has to switch to
Very
the main mode.
impressive, highly disciplined, and extremely gentle. A very unusual personality, and I learned a lot from him. As a structural engineer, as an air conditioning person, as a gentleman, and as a socially concerned person, he always was open. A very good colleague of mine, even though we had different disciplines, I admired him. I saw him in the afternoon only with an apple. Very simple food, very simple life. And while flying in the evening, he would not sit or talk to anybody, but throughout the journey, he would write notes for his colleagues or associates, so that I would ask, one day I asked him, and he says, I write this, when I land, I'm going to give this letter to my colleagues so they can follow it up and continue. Highly disciplined, punctual, committed, and sharp, creative. So many times, I had wanted to do things in air conditioning system or structure, and he would find a way. So it was very, very nice that somebody who had a very simple lunch, who was all the time working and constantly connecting with his people, a great organizer. He knew how to organize his organization, his work, his time, his conditions. And that was the thing I still remember. A man of not only principles, but something to learn from, something to acquire and become like him. I really loved him, and I very often remember him. Wherever he is, I am very sure he's continuing his organization and expanding his knowledge and advice. Great loss.
Can't hear.
Hear you, Hari.
I was just saying that.
Hari, we can't hear.
Yes, you can now.
Yes, it's okay.
I found it extremely moving, very, very touching. I'm sure it's like you all did. I went to Mr. Suresh Vasudevan, chairperson of the Indian Green Building Council, and many other things, and I'm not going to recount all that, for him to see how he can, tell us a little bit about architect KT Ravindran. Over to you, Suresh.
Thank you, Hari. It's indeed a pleasure, honor, and privilege to introduce an outstanding personality called Professor KT Ravindran, with over 52 years of service in the sector of being not only a planner but also an urban designer, and brought in the urban design three-dimensional master planning in a very large way into the India's planning format, and also the trustee of the INTAC in a very large way, and working as the chairman of Architectural Heritage Advisory Committee of INTAC, member of the advisory board of the United Nations Capital Master Plan project to deal with the own building under Directorate Report General, great building of 1939, the shaping up in a very large way. He has been advisor to the Honorable President of India for the UNESCO project for the complete Fort Cochin development in a large way, taught the urban design. Originally, he did his architecture from the School of Architecture and Planning from Chennai, Madras then, and then did his master's in urban design in the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. And there you are, teaching urban design in the school for 30 years time period on urban design, the three-dimensional master planning area, a large way. And then subsequently, after the SPA 1, he was the dean and the advisor for academic advisor to the Rick School of Built Environment in a large way, chairman of the Delhi Urban Arts Commission, not only as member, subsequently chairman for 3 years in a big way, and also the starting of the professional body called Institute of Urban Designers, just like all professional urban designers in this country, and as chairman of the Delhi Urban Arts Commission, he was also a member of the Ministry of Environment Forest for the Environmental Impact Assessment Committee for 2 consecutive terms, and chairman of the Heritage Conservation Committee of Delhi, and also a National Advisory Committee of the Hridaya cities, very important, 500, all the cultural cities coming in large way, and mentor of the Smart City Project mission, and on the public open spaces, a very important area. He's also a member of the committee for alternate new capital location of the state of Andhra Pradesh when the new government was formed over there, and also to deal with the balanced regional growth in Andhra Pradesh. And he was also vice chairman for the Environment Impact Assessment Committee, which I told earlier. And then he was also working with the Tamil Nadu government for the World Bank Resilient Urban Design Framework for the low-income state housing. Substantial projects, be it on cultural buildings or cities or memorials, in a large way. That's where I want to see what great projects they work together along with Dr. Jain. If he's 52 years, 49 years, he knows Dr. PC Jain. They work together some of the interesting projects like the Chinmaya Mission Building Project and various other projects. But I'm more happy to see the Rajiv Gandhi Memorial Project that he did over in Sriperumbudur, or the Vivekananda Project in New Delhi, or the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Project in Wardha. All these are part of the memorial related projects over there in a very large way. And KT is one who is very strongly wedded into all issues on culture, the historic development of cities, how to really have a sense of pride in all those particular things. And sustainability is a very, very major, strong component of his working system. And he has been, I personally know, even though Dr. Jain, 49 years, I know for about 37 years time period is equally important association from my own side also. And what is important is very passionate on sustainability, indigenous urban design, and urban conservation, and championing the cause of multiple international forums. He has been on the jury for international projects along with Charles Correa for Germany, for inviting him to deal with the project. For China, again, similarly, a very major planning project in Vietnam in a very large way he has done in this particular corner. And also for many projects for the Mathura Vrindavan whole redevelopment project in a large way, he has been very actively associated there. And whom else can we call today for this wonderful memorial address, which is going to be presented by KT Ravindran with over 5 decades of experience, of which nearly 49 years with Dr. PC Jain, working so closely with him on large number of projects. I'm sure we must be all eagerly waiting to hear from Professor KT Ravindran to give the memorial address. Could I invite KT to, we all call him personally by the name KT to come and give his address, please.
Yes, Suresh.
KT there?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Suresh, for a very detailed introduction. And it's indeed my privilege that I'm given the opportunity to give the memorial address for Dr. PC Jain. And I am indebted to Suresh, for instance, for the same. He's the one who actually always put me forward in every forum. And thank you, Suresh, for that. And with Suresh himself, my association goes back to more than 30 years. So I'll just begin my address. First of all, I'll talk about my encounters with Dr. Prem Jain. And then subsequently, I'll come to the IGBC and its role. Then I'll touch upon the future of green building and sustainable traditions in India, and how PC Jain actually touched a kind of primordial chord in the psyche of India when the way he articulated the formation of the IGBC. So it's almost half a century since I met Dr. Prem Jain for the first time in the corridors of SPA Delhi, as then I was a student of Masters of Urban Design. Back in 1973, that was. And I think Dr. Jain had just joined as a teacher. And one remembers him because if you see his face once, you cannot forget it, because he has the most radiant smile that you can see in anyone's face. After that, back in 1981, as an architect practicing in Hyderabad, I had visited ICRISAT, that is the center that was sponsored by UNESCO and then designed by Stein and Doshi. It's outside Hyderabad, and a sustainable campus development project. Dr. Jain, I later learned, was the consultant to Joseph Wallenstein and B.V. Doshi for that project. And therein he began a long association with Hyderabad. That was the first encounter with a large solar farm, along with the application of other sustainable campus development features. For me, I was seeing it for the first time. And as fate would have it, one of the first projects I got built in the early 80s in Delhi was the Chinmaya Mission in Lodi Estate, where Dr. Prem Jain's newly formed consultancy called Spectral provided the services designed. I cannot forget those extremely educative interactions that I've had with Prem Jain at that time. And he had a way of putting you at ease. And that sense of being a good human being was not a quality in him by itself. It was accompanied by a very competent professional approach to work. So there were lessons to learn from in many ways from Prem Jain there. And as a founding member of the IGBC and their later attempts towards a green building, the CII Shorabji Godrej Green Building Center in Hyderabad had already become very famous among the professionals. I was lucky to have been invited as part of a group of architects to visit the building where Dr. Prem Jain and Karan Grover, who was the architect of the building, explained the salient features of the buildings to our visiting delegation. I ran into Dr. Prem Jain in a number of seminars and other fora in Delhi, including in the Delhi Urban Art Commission. As the then chairman of DUAC, I had rejected the Ministry of Environment's proposal designed and presented by the CPW. It was unfortunate that the building was not really befitting, in my view at that time, or in the Commission's view at that time. It was not befitting the Ministry of Environment to say they had, for instance, a big fiberglass dome copying the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Okay? So that was rather comical to see that such a thing could be done. And we rejected the scheme, even though Jairam Ramesh himself was personally involved in promoting that scheme. Then, after it was rejected, the Minister of MOEF, Jairam Ramesh, was quick to convene an expert group led by Dr. Prem Jain to redesign the scheme as an example befitting the headquarters of the Ministry of Environment and Forests. The project was later cleared and built with Dr. Prem Jain at its helm of advisory committee. It was again built by the CPWD, but Dr. Prem Jain had introduced so many green features into the building that the commission was very happy to clear the project afterwards. Jairam Ramesh even arranged a separate visit for me into the ministry, where Dr. Prem Jain and his other colleagues made a separate presentation to figure out whether everything is okay or not. And of course, it was a cakewalk for them when they came into the commission, and it was cleared immediately and it's built. It continues to be one of the better green buildings in Delhi. Years later, when I was the dean of the RIC School of Built Environment, it was our intent to structurally embed the discipline of sustainable design in the curriculum for construction project management and real estate finance. The RIC School of Built Environment was giving an MBA to students with architecture and engineering background, specialized MBA in construction project management and real estate finance. And as you all know, that's an area where you need to doubly emphasize the requirement and need for green buildings. And many of them are only see it as a nuisance, used to see them as a nuisance. And it was very important for us to reinforce the subject of sustainability. And needless to say, I approached Dr. Jain to help set up a student chapter of IGBC in the school. Dr. Ashish Rakheja, who was been a partner of Dr. Prem Jain, was kind enough to come to the RIC school as well. And we had innumerable events year after year for the IGBC student chapter. And Dr. Prem Jain had very often gracefully accepted our invitation to meet the students and inspire them. The contribution, this is a contribution which I can never forget, because it was so important for us to ensure that students who are really going into the so-called business world of construction are aware and are all convinced of the need for a sustainable built environment. The formation of IGBC at Hyderabad was the next, I think, important milestone. The USA and CII came together for the first time to open its portal to India. This led to the convergence of CII, USAID, USGBC, and Jamshedji Godrej, bringing together a brilliant professional group of building industry to build India's first LEED Platinum rated CII Swaraj Godrej Green Building Center. It received the LEED rating in October 2003 first, and then subsequently was reinforced by another one as zero emission building later in, I think, in 2017 or so. The CII launched the Indian Green Building Council in 2001 in Hyderabad with the blessings of the then CM Chandrababu Naidu, who was a very forward-looking chief minister, committed to technology and looking at future of Hyderabad through technological growth. Albeit in a modified form to deal with the Indian conditions, the IGBC was subsequently approved to use LEED program so that it can be applied to buildings across India. For building labor, conditions, improving the conditions of materials, using indigenous materials, and improving the conditions of building labor were part of the Indian reality that were factored into the new LEED rating. This is an important step as far as India is concerned. The CII Swaraj Godrej Green Buildings and Business Center was revalidated at Net Zero Energy Platinum rated building in 2019. Dr. Prem Jain's open-mindedness and belief in the fact that any movement that sustains in India also needs to sustain itself spiritually led to an embedded foundation of competence, ethics, and professionalism in the IGBC's future endeavors. He identified the Panchabhutas, the 5 elements of nature, to become the framework for the green building movement in India. This included green materials, clean air, reduced energy consumption, a balanced approach to water, and the general well-being embodied in the building as a healing environment. And this is a very important factor because it's for the first time that the building is looked at as an environment which can heal the human psyche. Apart from looking at all these nuts and bolts issues of engineering, he also championed the cause of recycling of materials, recycle of construction debris, for instance, and many, many areas which are unthought of in the earlier attempts to attain sustainability. With such unshakable foundation, it is no wonder that the green building movement in India has since grown into a continuing success story. Dr. Prem Jain was himself surprised at this phenomenal growth. As a logical corollary, it now spans across multiple growth areas, from green city movement, from the building to the city, green neighborhoods, green construction industry, and even green interior design. India now has more than 5.7 billion square foot of green footprint. Dr. Prem Jain, wherever he is now, must be still radiating his inimitable smile because of this tremendous achievement. His organizational ability and firm leadership has seen the spread of green building movement amongst thousands of professionals, students, and builders across India, exploring the subject in a far more nuanced way from its beginnings. That is, for the first time, he ensured that the industry is in it with him. That is, the industry was also tuned in to champion the cause of green building. And in his inimitable way, he brought out the value of green building as a force in the marketing process of buildings. And today you can see so many hoardings across the country where the building is proudly proclaiming that they are a green building as a method of marketing the building. Now, this is a great achievement to connect a completely idealistic framework of green building to that of the marketing and profiteering domain in the real estate sector. This was a very singular achievement of Dr. Jain, that he was able to move it into that domain. Now let's look at the green future of India. However, the here and now of climate crisis is now a living reality for all professionals in the building industry. Efforts are on from United Nations to local self-governments to combat the ill effects of climate change, and India, as a signatory to all the international moves, have formulated comprehensive climate action policy. And Dr. Jain had a stellar role to play in the formulation of many of these policies. How much of this is an action in real terms from the declared policy still has many question marks. Yet, India's green building movement has gained massive professional following through private enterprise, while regulative efforts remain extremely unsatisfactory. As a nation, we are not left wanting in intellectual prowess, while implementation remains always at an abysmal level and a challenge for India. The United Nations shifted gear in the new SDGs outline for sustainability in 2015 with a major departure, refocusing on the human being from material sustainability. In other words, in the earlier avatars, the idea of sustainability in the UN meant ensuring that we hand over the resources that we receive to the next generation. And it was always, the emphasis was on resources and judicious spending of resources, and ensuring that the self-sustaining systems in nature is not hampered, so that the future generations can benefit from what we leave behind. India was a signatory to all these, and in 5 years review of its performance by the year 2022, we'll have to demonstrate what we have done. Of the 17 SDGs, which were extremely comprehensive, only one goal, that is goal number 11, among the 17 goals outlined by the UN, only goal number 11 directly addresses the issue of city and the built environment. Directly. All other issues also add up, like sustainability and issues like water, energy, labor. All these are addressed, health. All these are addressed in the 17 goals, but most directly mentioned is goal number 11, where they discuss buildings. And it's interesting to note that IGBC's first prescriptions of labor welfare and provision of amenities for labor already echoes the SDGs' improved focus on the human component of construction industry. In other words, IGBC had the foresight to see that it is the human component which is going to be as critical as that of the material and economic components. To that extent, the success of green building movement in India would offset the nation's implementation or lack of implementation of the SDG goals. In order to subvert the inertia of bureaucratic action process, across the world, the UN had already brought out in the year 2000 the UN Global Compact. It's also an offset of UN, originally proposed by Kofi Annan and subsequently implemented. It continues to be implemented, which the UK-based Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, that's the RICS, was a partner and a signatory. And they were collaborators in the whole process. And I was also a member of the 15th anniversary meeting of the UNGC in the UN headquarters in New York, representing the construction industry as a member of the RICS delegation. RICS has a delegation of 5 people drawn from around the world. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the members of the RICS delegation. The objective of the UNGC has embedded them, most of the 17 goals. It has embedded in them, the UNGC has embedded in them. It's the UNGC's UN Global Compact. And Kofi Annan and his idea of direct cooperation, cooperative action with the industries rose from the fact that UN's effort at creating sustainable future lost much of its momentum while trickling down to the sustainable action by the industry. The meeting of UNGC had no governmental representation, but only the institutions of different industries and the UN itself. Considering IGBC's tremendous success outside the domain of governments, it will not be off the mark to say that IGBC could directly become a part of the UNGC alliance in the UN. As its spread and depth, as envisaged by Dr. Prem Jain and his team, the green building goals of IGBC already address many of the UNGC goals. UNGC has also outlined a separate set of goals to be achieved, and they have also co-opted many educational institutions. And I represented the RICS School of Built Environment as part of the RICS delegation, was lucky to attend the forum in the UN, the 15th year forum. That was a milestone forum for the UNGC. The universal acceptance of green building principles by the industry, academia, and the stakeholders in India, even in the absence of stringent regulatory measures, is a pointer to the deeper values and ethics promoted by Dr. Jain within the movement. From a mere technical and transactional view of the IGBC moved and has embraced the humane attitudes and embodied spirituality that's embedded in the Indian psyche to touch the ethical. A reverential relationship with nature that has been part of India's highly plural ethos already provided a fertile ground for the green building movement to take root. This is behind the phenomenal success of the green building movement, not only because of the clever organizational strategies and consistent effort to spread the ideology across the professions, but also because we have a population in India which is already here we can remember that Mahavira, over 2,600 years ago, had already championed the cause of forest protection, women's rights, and universal compassion for all sentient beings, including trees, animals. Buddhism, which grew in parallel with Jainism at that time, also embodied tree worship and compassion as the fundamental tenets of holistic life. We must remember that Buddha, in fact, began as a Jain monk. In the first few years, he had joined the Jain sect with Mahavira, who was then the 24th Tirthankara in 6th century BC. You can imagine when the first Tirthankara or Adinath was, because the one before Mahavira was 300 years before. That's the 23rd Tirthankara was 300 years before. So you can imagine where into the depths of history, in the depths of time, that Adinath would go. And considering that Buddha began as a monk, in Jain monk, then he went into Maunavrata and was not seen for about 8 years. Then he reappears in Sarnath and gives his first public lecture. In other words, he took the ideals of Buddhism to a new height in communication. Buddhism, which grew in parallel with Jainism, I told you Mahavira was already the 24th Tirthankara, and Buddha was just emerging. He was 40 years younger to Mahavira in age. And they had embodied tree worship and compassion as the fundamental tenets of holistic life. Mahavira's 5 critical principles of right living were subsequently echoed interestingly by Mahatma Gandhi through his spiritual mentor Srimad Rajchandra of Dharampur in Gujarat. Mahatma Gandhi was in constant conversation with Srimad Rajchandra. They were both contemporaries in age, but Gandhi wrote a series of letters from South Africa and England to Rajchandra, and those letters are now published. And then Srimad Rajchandra, who was a follower of Mahavira, would then reply those questions. They were all philosophical inquiries. And the interesting part is Mahatma Gandhi, through his spiritual mentor Srimad Rajchandra in the late 1920s, I think it was around 1928 or so, that they were in conversation. The 5 principles of Mahavira are non-violence, that is ahimsa, truthfulness, which is satya. Actually, truthfulness or satya has a totally different interpretation in Jainism, because you have a concept called anekantavada. That means whichever trajectory you move through, you will find your own truth of that trajectory. And the interesting thing is that means there is no absolute truth. That truth is relative, and it's pursuit of that relative truth which makes the human being a finer human being. And then more importantly, we had non-possession, or what is called aparigraha, which seems to have influenced Dr. Prem Jain extensively, because when Payal was kind enough to send me his new book, I found that aparigraha is mentioned in a number of places. And it was one of the important principles that he followed. Then we have non-stealing, that is asteya. Asteya does not mean that you go and steal someone's things personally or materially, but it also means depriving someone else in thought. It's a very subtle explanation. And the last of it was brahmacharya, or chastity. Of all these 5 principles of aparigraha is particularly pertinent to the green building movement. It means consuming only what one needs for the self-sustenance of the body and soul, and not in unbridled exploitation of nature. For everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. It's a famous quote that we find from Gandhi. He is, in fact, echoing aparigraha. As much as the Greenpeace, who are now contemporary champions of environment protection, goes by the dictum reduce, reuse, recycle, they are also not saying anything different from aparigraha. And the word aparigraha recurs in Dr. Prem Jain's writing as a basic tenet of sustainable building practice. The frugality of Mahatma Gandhi, the way he clothed himself, his frugal possessions, the frugality that he practiced in his daily life and in his relationships, even his utopian concept of Gram Swaraj have aparigraha as its underpinning. It was Gandhi's genius to convert each one of these Mahavira's principles towards an ethically driven politics, which he effectively turned into a political weapon against colonization. His ability to penetrate even the most remote villages of India had their root in the same fertile psyche of Indian people. The IGBC's mediations of the goals of USGBC, in fact, effectively achieved what the freedom movement could have achieved through the Gandhian mission inherited from Mahavira and Rajchandra. The current chairman of IGBC, Mr. V. Suresh, my old friend of 30 years standing, also has a history of championing sustainable construction through the Nirmiti Kendras when he was with the HUDCO. Laurie Baker, the pioneering Gandhian architect, became the symbol of sustainability through the Gandhian principles of frugality in construction, was turned into a buzzword in sustainability by Mr. V. Suresh when he was at the helm of affairs in HUDCO. I am sure, armed with this history of sustainable buildings and firm faith in the Indian values, Mr. Suresh would also step lightly into the sensitive soul of India's embodied values. Let's hope that as much as technology application would guide the future course of green building movement in India, Dr. Prem Jain's visionary recognition of India to hold hand with the SDGs and climate mitigation measures to ethically drive the green building movement for the well-being of all. Could we bring Dr. Prem Jain's contagious smile to every stakeholder involved in the efforts to build a better world? That's the question I end with. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in this forum. Thank you. Very nice.
There you are. Step lightly on India's soul of embodied values. Very nice. I didn't expect you to do this one wonderful tour of 3 different sets of things, but you did a great job of that. I must say, very lovely. Thank you so much for this one.
Thank you.
Gurmeet Singh Garoda, can you take on this next few minutes and introduce Gaurav Shorey?
Thank you. Well, if I go through the entire introduction of Gaurav, I will take away his 20 minutes. So I will cut short the introduction, Gaurav, because you have many, many achievements that you have already done in your life. Gaurav has a bachelor's degree in architecture from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, with a postgraduate diploma in advanced construction management. He has 16 years of experience in sustainability, during which he has transitioned from the green buildings and energy efficiency sector to education and awareness for the need to preserve traditional knowledge systems for sustainable development and climate change mitigation. He has also 11 years of experience in academics, during which he has served as a permanent and visiting faculty at 2 of the leading schools of architecture in the NCR region. He is currently engaged as a visiting faculty at the Leuphana University, Lüneburg, Germany, where he is teaching a module on sustainability and responsibility to first-year undergrads. He is a founder member and current president of Swaraj, an NGO working in the education sector, sensitizing children and adults towards the connection between local culture and local climate. He is also visiting faculty, as I said, of the School of Planning and Architecture in New Delhi. He is a director of TSI Energy Private Limited, a partnership for sustainable India. It is a green building consultancy service based in New Delhi, committed to working with architects and engineers on resource-efficient buildings that are rooted in India's local and regional climate. They specialize in building performance simulations, low energy MEP systems, indoor environment quality, green building certifications, and related training. Gaurav is a Greha trainer and on the technical advisory committee. He's a ECBC master trainer under the BEE, professor of architecture at the Ansal University, Gurgaon, resource person for UN Habitat's International Training Program, area convener of Greha, research associate of TERI, and I can go on and on for the next 20 minutes, but I'll stop here. I can tell you, I have heard Gaurav several times earlier. I have also chaired his sessions earlier. You will really be amazed at his presentation. Gaurav, all floor is open for you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Gurveet, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you, Payal. Thank you, Ashish, Hariharan, sir, Suresh, sir. Absolute stalwarts. I have not stopped asking myself this question: what am I doing here? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? Ever since this started, because I'm number one, I have only known Dr. Jain for 21 years, and I'm probably the youngest in terms of the amount of the kind of relationships that people have shared over here. I find myself in a very, very rare privilege today that for the past 4 years, I have been teaching air conditioning to third-year students in the School of Planning and Architecture, which was what Professor Jain taught us. And I cannot possibly say that I can, fit into his shoes or do the kind of work that he did with us. And I remember when this opportunity came up, I sat with my wife and I was like, this is what has come up. What do you remember about sir? And she said, oh, I don't remember him. I remember ma'am's cakes. And we had a hearty laugh because anytime that we learned air conditioning from Dr. Jain, it was never about theory. It was never about the class. It was about his buildings. It was about projects that he had worked on. It was about application. It was about reality. It wasn't about what was in the books. And then there was this amazing cake that would follow up. And I think I dare say that at that time, काफी bouncers जाते थे सर के ऊपर से. We wouldn't really get everything about air conditioning, but what we would be left with was his sheer excitement, the twinkle in his eye, which all of you would recall, in the way he would share about his subject, the passion that he had, and the love and magnanimity that he had for the students is something that I can only wish, and if I can just voice Payal's words, 2% of what he stood for in the world. So I have a slightly, I'm going to share a slightly deviated journey over here. I must also share that when I was quitting TERI in 2011 to start this journey of Swaraj, Dr. Jain was the first person to offer me a job. It was in the India International Center Annex. We were at a Bureau of Energy Efficiency, UNDP kind of conference. And he came to me and he said, Gaurav, I heard you're quitting. Why don't you join us? And I shared with him this journey that I was going to set off on. And I still remember the words that he said. He said, well, Gaurav, my blessings with you and best wishes always, but always remember that my doors are always open for you. And it was just so moving and so encouraging that I think it is that excitement that has carried me forward to where I am today. So without much further ado, and there's so many endless anecdotes that I can share. In fact, I still remember the first time I shared with Sir about this journey of Swaraj in 2011. I met him again in college about 4 or 5 years later. And he still remembered what I had shared with him in 2011. So he asked me very specifically, "Bhai, kya ho raha hai tumhare us project ke saath?" And I think this was his phenomenal care, because I really don't think this, you can't fake this. No one can fake this. You have to genuinely be interested in people to remember that one instant of a 5-minute conversation that you had with an ex-student of yours, over so many years. So without much further ado, I hope everybody can see my screen. I am going to share very briefly about this project called Swaraj, but I'm going to do it in a manner that will just give me one second. Sorry, just a moment. Yeah. So very quickly, and I'm not going to go into the details. A lot of you have withstood death by PowerPoint, and I'm not going to put you through that again. But there's something that I did want to start with, and it's so beautiful that Professor KT Ravindran said that the journey of truth to each his own. I'm of course paraphrasing him, and I wanted to start with these golden words that nothing that I want to say is the truth. It's only a point of view. It is my truth. It is something that I have experienced. It is not necessarily going to hold true for you, and to accept it or not is your choice. Now, there's a few things that are unexamined, and there's one of the things that I wanted to share with you was that in 2008, I got hit like a slap in the face that made me realize that I don't listen to people. I went through a certain process that had me realize that I listen to people through filters. I listen to what I want to listen to. And this was very specifically targeted at my parents. I realized that I don't really listen to my parents. I always thought that my parents were people who wanted to see me succeed, who wanted to see me be on top of the world. So I kept running the rat race like crazy, trying to go from one project to the next and one project to the next, one project to the next. When I discovered this and I went and spoke to my parents and I asked them, what do they want of me? They said that all they wanted was for me to be happy. And that was the day that I gathered the courage to deviate and set off on a path that was very different. Now, what you see on the screen is point number one. The context of our life is very often unexamined. And a lot of people have shared so beautifully the context of Dr. Jain's life was the principles that KT sir so beautifully elucidated, and I cannot recall right now. But that concept comes through in Dr. Jain's book. I would encourage you to read it. Believe it or not, I read it from cover to cover since the time that you sent it, Payal. Thank you so much for that. It was a privilege reading it. The second aspect pains me a little. It's called hegemony. And hegemony has a subpart called gaslighting. Now, hegemony is when we are dominated by a foreign language and a foreign culture to the extent where we don't know we are being dominated. If we know that we are being dominated, then it's not hegemony. Hegemony in linguistics is very specifically when you don't know that you're being dominated. The journey that I've had has also allowed me to explore language structures and also has made me realize that Indian languages, especially local languages across India, have a deep reverence, a deep love, and a deep respect for nature, which is quite frankly unparalleled in a lot of what we have done today. And those languages have gone on to do what is point number 4, which is the social construct of reality. It's very important for all of us to understand reality is socially constructed. What we agree is real. For example, the definition of development or the definition of developed is socially constructed. It's not something that is written in stone. It's not something that's the truth. Like KT so beautifully said, it is one possible truth. So I'm going to unravel the truth for you. The first one is this truth. I was told in college that there are 5 climate zones in India, and this is the truth. It's in the National Building Code. So let me take you a little deeper into the story of India and have you realize that first and foremost, there are 29 climate zones in India, and there are 17 geographical climate zones that India is divided in. So that busted the first myth open and made me realize that 5 climate zones was not the truth. But when we were working on developing Griha and we were working on developing various typologies and variants to understand how local contexts vary, we discovered the agroecological map of India, and we realized that India has 21 agroecological zones. Now, that was really strange because in parallel, I was developing the concept of Swaraj under the guidance of a professor from IIT Delhi, Professor Vijay Raghavan. And I discovered that India has 22 major languages, and languages change with geography. Languages change with climate. Languages change with soil. That again made me wonder about the truth. And then somewhere down the line, we developed this map, which was the junk food map of India, and it had 31 different soil types, now food types. And we realized that, wait a minute, how does this work? It doesn't food change with soil, but soil to 17 type के होने चाहिए, तो ये कहाँ से आ गए? And it was really strange because when we went one step further, we discovered that we have 155 soil types in India, and the formula for soil types is clot, climate, organic matter, relief, parent material, and time. We're being played. We have 234 identifiable mother tongues and 1,635 rationalized mother tongues in India. Each mother tongue has more respect for their local climate and for relationships with nature and with each other than I can ever imagine learning through all my academic upbringing. What is also very interesting is that in most cases, we have very strong alliances and partnerships with the global north, not realizing that the global north finishes where India starts. So in most cases, the climate that the global north has is very different from the climate that India has. And Dr. Jain's book voices this over and over again so beautifully. But this, I think, is the bottom line. The fact that the most biodiverse countries in the world have the maximum cultural diversity, not very surprising. Now, there's a question that I'm left with. Since local culture always protects and preserves nature, why fit everybody into one mold? And this is the question that had me literally get up and leave on a completely divergent path. We all go through the same process. We have so far worked with more than 200 schools, Anganwadis across the country. And everywhere we go, we start with this simple survey where we ask students, what do you want to do when you grow up? And students say any one format of engineering, architecture, design, get into the movies, be a politician, be a fashion designer, be a music producer. And then he asks them the next question, what is required for a sustainable planet? In 5 minutes of this exercise, the students can themselves see that there is no connection between who they want to be when they grow up and what is required for a sustainable planet. Singular consequences. I don't need to show you all this, but it's obvious that we need a sea change in perception. And it's very interesting that so many people, Hariharan sir started with it, KT sir so beautifully reinforced it. We have lost faith in ourselves. I have lost faith in myself. My faith comes from my degree, from my qualification, but not from my ancestry and not from my heritage. So you all might be familiar with the Bhasha Bhojan Vesh Bhavan Bhajan. That's not where I'm going today. I'm going very specifically into a specific direction, into weaves, into fabrics. Not because this is close to Payal's heart very specifically, but to the fact that India's history is the history of textile and not the history of anything else. But why that happened also was because India's history was enmeshed with religion and philosophy. So whether it was Buddhism or Jainism or Hinduism, it spoke about the Indrajal. It spoke about millions and myriads of species interwoven and interconnected with each other in a very delicate balance, in a mesh, in a fabric that was woven by the creator. The same story finds its way in Buddhism and the same story finds its way in Jainism, which is why we have this Indian fibers and weaves. Amru, Vari, Bharat, Batik, Banarsi, Bandhani, Chamba, Rumal, Chanderi, Chausa, Kathak, Chikankari, Dorukha. You have seen the diversity of fabrics that we have. And I'm going to take you through just a few of these, whether it's the Chamba Rumal or the Chanderi or the Chikankari, and then the kind of diversity you have just within Chikankari. And I want you to notice something over here, that each one of the weaves and stitches that I mentioned over here are taken from patterns in nature. None of them reflect anything other than that. So whether it's the hool or the bakhia or the zanjira or the shadow work that is so famous within Chikankari, all of this represents those 155 soil types that we started with in the beginning. So whether it's a Dorukha or a Chanderi or a Ikkat or a Jamdani or a Jamewar or a Kalamkari or a Kutch embroidery, which again goes into 16 different varieties. And all these varieties are reflecting the tribes that wear the fabric. It is not the name of a fabric, it's actually the name of a tribe that practices that form of embroidery. So that's the Kantha, and that's the Kashida, and that's the Paithani, and that's the Pashmina, and that's the Pashmina, and that's the goat that doesn't really know what's happening across the world. And that's Fulkari, and that's Kalam. That's that is, what is that? That's Pipli. Yeah, that's right. That's Pipli. And this is the Dosi. All of what you just saw has an impact on energy consumption. So my drive along with our team, even in SPA, with other colleges that we are teaching in, is to have people realize that the clothes you wear has an impact on your energy consumption. The clothes you wear has an impact on your waste generation. The food you eat has an impact on your air conditioning loads. We were taught all this in college by Sir himself. There's Clo factor, there's Met factor. But did we take it into account in design? No, we didn't. Normally, it was given a number 1, a unit factor, and then the rest was focused on. But there is gold to be dug up in the rest of it. We are left with the same question. Why is everybody trying to fit into the same global mold? If local culture has protected and preserved people across the world, then why are we not encouraging what we're encouraging? So I'm going to bring it full circle to bring it to what Professor Virender Paul was talking about. And Paul sir might not remember this, but when I was in university, when I got into college in 1997, I would find comfort in chatting with sir because he would speak in Punjabi and I could speak in Punjabi to him, and I would go complaining to him about the ragging and all the stuff that was happening back in the day. So again, when he started off by saying that the Prem Jain Memorial Trust is going to encourage initiatives in social entrepreneurship, in environmental entrepreneurship, in Indian culture, I was just bursting because I was like, oh my God, this is all that we have been working on for so long. Farm to Fabric was one of our first ventures where I started teaching along with my colleagues, school children, how to chalao charkha. We of course went on to then teaching teachers, and we also developed teaching modules on how to teach maths, how to teach multiplication, how to teach concepts in physics like force into momentum, so on and so forth, theories in physics using the charkha, right? This was in 2016. Then my colleague Aparna Pathak started Mapani, again going to the roots. So we were sick and tired of specifying sewage treatment plants. We were like, wait a minute. In India, we've been practicing Ayurveda. Ayurveda goes to the root of the problem. It does not address the problem at a superficial level, right? So what if we could come up with a system such that wastewater doesn't get generated? It was not difficult. We had to go to 3 villages that we work in and speak to our moms. And we got so many recipes for things that can replace soaps, cleansers, shampoos, detergents that do not pollute water. And when I say they do not pollute water, we had the water tested just to drive home the point that it does not pollute water. This is your heritage, ladies and gentlemen. This is you. This came from you. So this happened in 2018. And then Urvara happened where, and I'm sharing examples with you where people who practiced architecture quit their jobs and decided to contribute to something that was needed and required. So for all the young people who are listening in over here, I want you to remember, डिग्री हम लोग अपने लिए नहीं हासिल करते, अपने पेरेंट्स के लिए हासिल करते। उसके बाद आप फ्री हो, आप कर सकते हो जो आपको करना है। जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको वही प्रैक्टिस करना होगा जिसकी वजह से एनवायरमेंटल डिस्ट्रक्शन होता है। You are left free to practice that which may nurture the environment. You are left free listening to your father till your degree. After that, you need to become your mother. So Karishma formed Urvara. She decided to go back to her village from the city. Village is very close to Delhi in Modinagar district, and to convince her village people to go organic and to start homestays and farm stays. And she's reviving faith in her village. And then there was Gaurav Dikshit from SPA, finished his graduation, moved to Rishikesh, to a village actually close to Rishikesh called Kandwal, where he is now formed India's first startup that is working on hemp-based concrete, which is called Hempcrete. And he was awarded the Prime Minister's Award. Narendra Modi ji felicitated him as one of India's most promising startups. Samrat Chauhan, Goplau, again, IIT, NIT, quit his job, went back to his village, started organic farming 3 years back, currently again, one of the most felicitated people in the NCR for excellent practices in organic farming. Mud buildings is what we've been doing since 2016, teaching people how to do that. Khet Se Khadar Tak was again an initiative of taking people through the process of harvesting cotton, combing it, carding it, ginning it, spinning it, and then all the way to weaving it, to have young people realize how much effort it takes to be able to take that fiber all the way to fabric. Because the way young people today shop, whether it's on Amazon or it's off the shelves, they don't really realize that our ancestors fought for this country's freedom based on a lot of effort by coming together and making their own cloth. So to discover that journey is a very humbling experience. We've had people share feedback where literally they're on the verge of tears when they go through that entire process. Where all have we been? Well, lots of schools that we've worked in. I won't get into this. Lots of colleges. Of course, I must mention the alma mater, School of Planning and Architecture, without which I wouldn't be here today. For the past 7 years, we've been running the Swaraj project over there with students, again, convincing them that the villages that they come from is where the gold is, and the culture that they come from is where it's at. And they don't need somebody else on Netflix to tell them what's cool. And so far, I've been blessed to have the elective be full up every year for the past 7 years with the best students of the Bachelor in Architecture program. And again, how do I put it? I'm at a loss for words for the fact that it was, if I can continue that magnanimity and the love and the generosity and passion that Dr. Jain epitomized so much, this mission would also succeed. So professional organizations, some photographs from all our images. I want to leave you with this parting thought. Alan Watts is one of my personal gurus who introduced me to India when I didn't know too much about this country. And I'm paraphrasing in what he says. He says, we are at war with nature, but really we are at war with ourselves. Our nature within us is never acceptable to us. This is for every one of us listening in today. We keep changing it. We keep studying more, doing more, traveling more, telling people to change, getting them to change, helping them change. Because we know that with us, there's no hope. But the day we learn to love and accept nature, ourselves, within us, we learn to love and we learn to accept nature exactly the way it is and the way it is not, without changing or fixing anything, is the day that we will stop destroying nature. This is for each and every one of us, and in memorial of one of the best teachers that anybody can ever aspire for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gaurav. The last 100 minutes has sort of redeemed our faith in India and its future.
Louder, Hari, louder, please.
It's redeemed our, faith in the future of India. We listen to a person who is a fifth of Dr. Doshi's age and a half of, KT's age, and look at it coming up with things that are way beyond the current coinage of multicultural culturalism and so on, that India sometimes is getting lost in. You will all remember the discovery of India, the very first chapter where Nehru writes about the ancient palimpsest that this country is, or that India is. India is itself a word that, anyway, did not go there now. And that palimpsest is being written and rewritten upon. That, I think, is the beauty of such marvelous souls that you all are. What a wonderful memorial session we've had today. Thank you, Gaurav, Shorey, for what you've done now. KT Singh, can I request you now to take charge and, see how you can talk about the theme that you set for this for this Memorial Week, the plastic-free campus manual, and then see how you can, I'll leave that to you. From there, you can possibly, I must also mention, Sandeep Naran, if you're there, I'd like you to turn on your video. Thank you so much for all the wonderful work you've done in creating this manual. Over to you, KT Singh.
Thank you, Dr. Hariharan, Ms. Prem Jain, Mr. V. Suresh, the champions drawn from the industry and the academia, the young students who are here on this program today, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to you. It's my privilege and honor, and it's also a very pleasurable task that has been assigned to me to introduce the single-use plastic-free campus toolkit to all of you before this is formally launched by Mr. V. Suresh. Plastic, as we understand, not only are large energy guzzlers at the time of manufacturing, but also pose huge challenges for the environment, and managing their disposal is also a huge challenge. PJMT has always championed the cause of sustainability, and as a part of building a carbon neutral world, have taken up this initiative of bringing out this publication called the Single-Use Plastic-Free Campus Toolkit. So this is a starting point. I think as we go along, we will have a lot more publications coming on, which will talk about making India plastic-free and help India achieve its goal of carbon neutrality. This toolkit is an excellent publication compiled by PJMT team, the GT Academy, and the IGBC, with professionals drawn from the academia and the industry. This is a must read for all, especially our young students who are here on this program. The toolkit is one which documents and essays the methodology and a proven concept to strategically plan and use a plastic-free campus. The toolkit also aims to publish practical and replicable solutions to manage this plastic waste and educate institutions how they can manage and make their campuses plastic-free. Once implemented, many educational institutions will have huge success stories to pen down. At ISHRE and at the Delhi chapter of ISHRE, we take this pledge to implement this toolkit across all the colleges and all the campuses who are a part of our student chapters, and see how we can contribute in making India a carbon neutral country by the year 2070. I would say
there. Can I request now Suresh ji to launch the manual?
It's a great pleasure. It's a very great pleasure to launch this wonderful document called Single Use. It's already the document which is already known to all of us. I think I would like to show this single-use plastics for free campus, so beautifully brought out by the PJMT along with the GT team, campus team there, and also the project team there. And I got to really give credit to Prem Jain for initiating this wonderful one, the great document of a toolkit document. What is interesting I like is not only the problem area, but plus you also got alternate solutions also being there. So if you, to me, all our student chapters, which are 320 in number, can use it all completely. So just like KT has so that he tried to use the students there, all our IGBC student chapters, they got their campuses there. They can use this particular thing on single-use plastic-free campus. And I think this itself is one of the biggest steps towards sustainable development. I just thought that's the message that you should go across. I'm sure this will be already available in everybody's hand. And first of all, congratulate the whole team for this great document which is brought out there. And I like the very simple way the whole document has been created. The problems have been identified so well, and solutions have been given step by step, how to go about, very easily followable walking the talk is easy with this document. My congratulations again to the great team there, of the GT campus team there, and all the students who have worked on, when there are so many people there, in particular Anurag, Dhruv Jain, Shilpa, Nidhi Nair, and the project team contains the team from so many institutions, the IEM, YMCA, Sushant University, Access College, Sushant again from Vastukala Academy, as well as the IEM. Therefore, it's a contribution of so many bright young minds. There is their document. That's what I like. Sure. Document prepared by the youngsters, for the youngsters, for use in the campus. Great contribution to the PJM.
Can we request? Can we request Sandeep Narang to speak only 2 sentences?
I would like him to talk.
What he did.
He has given a good.
How did he work?
He has given a wonderful forward.
I know we are departing on it. Sandeep, 2 minutes for you. We are.
He has given a wonderful introduction also in the book.
Yes, Sandeep. Sandeep. Okay, that's okay.
I think Sandeep is a little shy to speak, but he likes to be in the background. He has done a lot of work to make this happen. So,
okay, what can I say of Mr. Kamaljeet Java? To simply say that he heads something called Daikin, which is itself, a household name for many, is, I think, a very poor definition of Kamaljeet Java sir. Mr. Java, the first time you were in Singapore at that point in time, some 10 years ago. You were supposed to be there at one of those conferences. I can't remember where. It must have been in Delhi. You didn't come. Dr. Jain was there. He was completely unhappy. I met him in the washroom, and he said, Java was supposed to be here with us. I don't know why he's not here today. I have never seen him a little lost on somebody not being there. And that was you and your relation with him. Mr. Java, you are supposed to today see how you can announce these, Green Challenge winners. I'll also request Janish Doshi, who has been such a brick of solid support for us at the Governing Council of the Trust itself. To the both of you, can you turn on and the videos? And yes, there you are. Mr. Java first, and then Janish Doshi next.
Good afternoon to all my friends. It's a very touchy moment for me in this esteemed gathering. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm very happy to yet again get associated with this Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav. Events like these take us back to early days when the green building concept was established, and today we have many stalwarts who have spoken on this. These big dreams were conceived towards creating awareness and advocacy as sustainability and environment. Yes, I fondly remember Dr. Prem Jain for decades for his services to the environment, earning him a reputation as a green visionary. As a visionary, Dr. Prem Jain was the most respected green building figure, not only in India, but also I think in Asia and also in the world.
Yeah.
He had a great reputation in Japan. To me, he was a mentor, a coach, a teacher, a friend, a free thinker, an innovator, a change agent, and above all, I think most of the speakers have said, pure, humble soul, more than anything else. I've yet to see such a simple man doing so many things. I think of Dr. Jain as an inspiration to all. His contribution to air conditioning industry is paramount in the entire world. I know that I've heard him saying so many times that when he came back from the US, his love for his country, his love for his motherland. I think now it is our responsibility to walk in the direction he set for us towards sustainable and green future, and to make India an epitome of green building. I'm sure many of you know that, how we started this from a humble beginning. And today IGBC has already registered footprints of over 7,000 plus projects. People like Mr. Suresh, Hariharan ji, I don't know, the 800 billion square feet, that time it was unimaginable. It was a dream, thinking big and you end up doing big. That is what he used to say. Well, friends, without much ado, time paucity, I'd like to talk yet another initiative of Green Building Family, the Pyle Jain's initiation on the awards winners. And I think first we have about total 9 or 10 awards, but I think Green Architecture Competition. This has invited applicants to share their ideas through plans, sections, views, details, collages, photographs, or however your ideas and experiments are communicated. I'm pleased to announce the winners of these contests. The first winner is Miss Nashra. The winner 2 is Prem Jain, and winner 3 is Karanji in this. So my congratulations to all the winners. The second was the Green Reel competition. This is all, creating more and more awareness, getting more and more green champions into our system, the ambassadors. This was launched to highlight the sustainability and an effort to save the planet, however small or big. A 30-second reel needed to be created around the topic, highlighting zero plastic sustainability awareness. And again, it's a great pleasure to announce the winners of this contest. The winner 1 was Jatin. The next winner was Komal. And the third winner was joint winners, Noshin and Miss Salon. So the Green Photography Challenge was again conceptualized to capture the imagination and creativity of photography enthusiasts, professionals, and amateur keen to share images of sustainable initiative. The applications are required to showcase the act of sustainability around them with respect to people, the planet, or the prosperity. And here again, there was joint winners on the first winner, the Arpan, the Khushi Yadav Chauhan. Congratulations, Arpan and Khushi. The number 2 award goes to Ms. Sanchita, and the third winner was Vidhi Rana. Congratulations. Now, Rajneesh ji, would you like to talk or shall I continue on this?
I'm absolutely open because you're doing a wonderful job in any case. So if you'd like to carry on, by all means. Because we've got Green Mask and the Green Art installation. So you have the names or can I?
You should go ahead, Mr. Joshi, since you're here now.
Okay, fine. So I think Jawad has said a lot about initiatives which have been taken by PJM. I'm not going to get into what all Dr. Jain has been involved with and what all he has done. But one thing which I can say personally, am I audible?
Yes, please go.
Yes.
One thing which I would like to mention over here, that amongst all what has been said about Dr. Jain, there's one thing which I would like to add.
The winner here was...
I will come to the winner.
The first winner...
Am I? There is some kind of...
I think there's some...
And I think the way...
Sorry, there's some disconnect there. Pratik, you may have to step in. Pratik, you have to step in. Some recording challenge, I think.
There's
an overlap of audio.
The first winner...
Pratik? He's not speaking. Mr. Java is not speaking, but still it's happening, Mr. Joshi. Pratik, go on. Continue, please.
So I'll just take 1 minute off before I announce the award for Green Mask and Green Art installations. And that was what I was talking about, Dr. Jain. Amongst all the things that have been said, and I concur on every one bit of it, but there was one other thing, which he was personally an inspiration for me, especially when I started to get into my own work. And I went into a bit of a, I should say, a high and a low. And he came up and said that I could kick up the business at the age of 60, you're still young. And that has been an inspiration for me. Well, gentlemen and little ones who are awaiting for the announcements, we have the green mask. The first prize goes to Pradeep Datta of IEM University, Calcutta. It's important that the PJMT has taken this all across the country, and we can see in the winners that we are here and which Java Sahab has announced and I'm talking about. Now, the second winner is Ms. Kajal Keshav from Lady Irwin College, New Delhi. And we have a third winner, Ankita Parmanik from Sri Sri University, Cuttack. So here we are, east, north, and now we're going back again to east. For the green art installation, we have Ms. Monisha Datta of NITT University, Bangalore. And we have following her is Kalprix Children School, New Delhi. And the third winner is actually joint winner. There are three winners: Sukanya Patil, Nisha Chauhan, Yashi Sharma, and the fourth one, Sagar Srivastava from AIT Gujarat. So now we can see, congratulations first and foremost to all the winners. You've done a wonderful job. And Team PJMT and all the people who are supporting it. It's wonderful to see that the word is spreading all across the country. And that's all I would like to say. Congratulations once again to the winners. Keep it up. And I'm sure the talks today have been very inspiration and given you a lot of inspiration from all that we've heard. And I hope in the next session, we will have even greater participants from all across the areas where we are still missing participation from. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Rajneesh. Like Payal is written out there on the chat box, this has been by far the most inspiring and mesmerizing session. She says, personally, but I would like to think that this is a sentiment a lot of us will echo. Wonderful session between those three people. All of them spoke from their heart, you know, and I mean, she spoke from his heart, as he said earlier. He said, I threw the script out of the window. And every time Mr. Java speaks, he gets emotional about Dr. Jain. There is some very, very amazing bond that he has with him, which goes beyond all human dimensions. Well, I'll invite now Gurmeet, the other Gurmeet Sethi. Gurmeet, I know you're emerging from COVID attack. You wanted to speak earlier. Payal told me about this. Then we said to ourselves, well, anyway, you're going to be having the last word of these matters. And we have enough time. I know you want to speak a little more. You have something to share. We will want to listen to you, Gurmeet Singh Sethi.
Thank you, Dr. Hariharan. First of all, thanks for your wishes and thanks, Payal, for continuously checking on me whether I'm doing okay or not. And I'm really glad that I was able to come and speak to all of you. Basically, there is no one today, either in the panelists or in the audience, whose life has not been touched by Dr. Jain. And we have heard so many people talk so many good things about him. I mean, I would say for me also, he has been a great inspiration. And whenever I requested him for something, he always helped me. But I would today want to concentrate and talk about a little bit about what the Prem Jain Memorial Trust has been doing, how it was formulated, what we have achieved in the last 4 years. And thanks to all of you as a board of governing body, as well as eminent speakers who were here today, so all of it. I still remember, and many of us might do so, the first meeting that we had in the conference room of one of the hotels in Delhi, where we really wanted to talk about, that we want to keep the legacy of Dr. Jain moving forward, and what would be the best way. Of course, the trust was an idea. What would it be like? What all it would promote and encourage? We all had some ideas, but how to club it together and bring it to something meaningful? I think it started on that in that conference hall that we first met. And I remember in one of these subsequent discussions, we finalized that we will have Dr. Jain's birthday getting celebrated in a very novel way, and then finally it culminated into an idea of a week getting celebrated. But the most interesting part was the naming. I still remember very vividly 4 years ago when we were talking about how to name it, and such wonderful idea came across. It said, let's talk in Dr. Jain's language. So we started with something, and then finally these four words. Harit, of course, is the favorite word of Dr. Jain, the green revolution. Prem, his name, and that is what he spread all across his life. And we are still touched by it. Bharat, his favorite word, which made, I believe, the word India more meaningful to each one of us who are so deeply rooted to our country. That Bharat is something which is real, and of course, India is something which is overarching. Yes, but and then finally, the last word which was coined as Mahotsav, which made this week a much more, it gave it a larger than life image. But ultimately, everything that we do needs to be supported. The name itself was not enough, and the way it was celebrated in the first year and beyond, I think there is something which is very, very commendable. The mega event which we decided at that time was, of course, the memorial lecture, and I know how many deliberations we had and how it will happen, where it will happen, the way it was to be done, and then we had this first memorial lecture in the Stain Auditorium, India Habitat Center, where we had a mega audience, and then Padma Bhushan, Padma Shri Dr. V.K. Saraswat, Chief Guest, Padma Shri Architect Shankar. What a well received event that was. And then moving on to 20, the IEC Delhi, we had from the other spectrum, Mr. Gautam Gambhir as the chief guest, and keynote address by Architect Pradeep Sachdeva, followed by memorial address by Justice Swatantra Kumar. I know whosoever have attended those sessions knows and remembers what we all talked about. And then, we all remember the COVID time stuck almost 2 months after that, and we thought that everything is going to be coming to a standstill. But what a change it became. We got from reaching out to maybe 500,000, 1,500 people to suddenly reaching out to thousands and thousands of people, and great activity from there onwards. I will talk about a little bit on what activities we did during the last 3 years, but before that, let's go back to the third memorial address, or the Prem Jain Prem Bharat Mahotsav, where we had the third address to a virtual huge audience with Mr. Shiv Kheda as the chief guest and Mr. Pradeep Barman delivering the keynote with a very, very inspirational message coming from Architect Brinda Sumaya that time. I think all of it is just as fresh in my memory as probably many things others. But to let you know, all of us who are listening to us today, just to let you know, in the last 3 years, we in the Prem Jain Memorial Trust have done more than 200 programs. 200 programs have been done, or events where memorial lecture, green building missions, green walkathon, green challenges, various webinars, series, technical and awareness sessions, painting, quiz competition, tree plantation, project certification presentation, various university collaborations. Huge work has happened to make sure that we are able to send out the message of Dr. Jain to all the people who are being touched today. And this year, there are very similar projects which have happened in the last, as we did in the last year. But just to let you know, almost 10 webinars have already been done in this year as of now. 8 green talks have been done, lots of tree plantation and other things which we did previously. But the important thing which was just released some time back is the zero plastic drive, and the way we have approached the theme of this year. So as I said, the address, my talk was supposed to be another year and another milestone, and I'm sure I have been able to bring to your memory, everybody's memory, and to inform people who didn't know about it and what has been done till now today. Today's address by Professor Ravindran, really mesmerizing. It was really something that kept me hooked to whatever he was saying. And many congratulations, Architect Gaurav. It was really good to see how you connected the India to Bharat and brought back the memories of Dr. Jain talking about Bharat. Uh, by the way, my wife would love to have a word with you because particularly on the fabrics that you show, she always spends a lot of time in getting Indian fabrics because she tries to dress up in Indian clothes. But very inspiring. And then finally, the address by Dr. B.V. Doshi, it has enriched our lives and it has shown us the path of sustainability. Uh, Also, I would like to thank all the other eminent speakers for today, and the all the members in the board of governing body who shared their thoughts. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. And Mr. Java, back to you. There's a minor whatever. There are two other winners that you have to, sets of winners you have to announce for painting and for the constellation run. Over to you, Mr. Java.
Yeah, I think one was the green virtual run, which was left out.
That's right.
That was primarily the virtual marathon. This was to challenge yourself to reach a designated goal of finishing a specified distance by running or walking or cycling at a time and location of your choice. A very innovative idea again from Prem Jain. The only difference is that you can run this race from anywhere with anyone and at any time of the day. So I'm pleased to announce the winners of this contest again, Ms. Komal, Kritika, and Vanshika. Congratulations. And on consolation prize on painting also, Master Yash, Baby Srishti, and Baby Sonia. Congratulations. And surely and certainly, it's not Dr. Hariharan that we get emotional. I'm really elated to see that so many green contests being launched by PGMT, and all of these are during very, very tough time. Particularly last 2 years, we know that the COVID-19 and then second COVID. First, of course, was more of economic crisis, which we could all sail through probably, and second was more on human tragedy. And that is the time when the team has actually shown the collaboration or the collaborative efforts. He was one man, you have seen that, Chirag started probably, and then Gurmeet is also spoken. I think he was one man who brought competition to cooperation. So, you can't see the better example than this. This is how we get emotional. I mean, he was to bring all of us together on one common platform for country, for Bharat Kayasi or Bharat, how he can take Bharat to a level next. And that competitive spirit was creating the awareness about sustainability and also awareness about the environment. I will request Prem Jain, first of all, I want to thank her. And second, I want to request her that I'm sure that she has been taking a lot of initiatives on this green movement, plastic free, but also I'm sure that there are a lot of challenges still to be addressed, which unfortunately some of them we wanted to address and we could not address. But those, we have to again come together on those challenges and how do we collaborate and help her for the wonderful torchbearer what she is. So wish you all the best, Payalji, and I'm sure we can have a meeting very soon, physical meeting, because many times we cannot solve all our issues with this virtual meeting. So I want to congratulate you. At the same time, I think I'm looking forward to have a personal meeting with you for all your challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chava. We are a full 14 minutes ahead of schedule. And it occurred to me, if you'll all allow me this departure, that we must ask Architect KT Ravindran, and then of course the young man Gaurav, in 30 seconds, say 2 or 3 sentences to respond to all the things that you have heard from all the rest of us here this afternoon. Architect KT. Whatever you want to say, 2, 3 sentences, that's it.
Thank you, Hariharan. Thank you for asking me to do this. But I must say that the diversity of people that we have here and the diversity of the group that is now talking about Dr. Jain is a very encouraging sign. That means the future of the green building movement in India are going to take diverse trajectories. And it's for each one of us who have shown a tendency towards a certain direction to pursue that in that direction, in our specific direction. In other words, find our own ways of finding the truth, which Mahavira had called Anekantavada. Thank you.
Thank you. Gaurav.
I can't really say much. I just feel that there is so much that I owe to Dr. Jain. One of the biggest platforms that we as Swaraj has received to share our work has been ISHRE. And what would ISHRE be without Dr. Jain? And of course, without Ashish's efforts of what he was sharing in 1981, they set the flag flying. So I just wanted to say thank you all so much for what you provide. Thank you for keeping his spirit alive. It is so required in today's day and age for that spirit of love and spirit of oneness and that infectious enthusiasm to just pervade, cut through time and space and get kind of, rub off onto the younger generation. So I'm just in gratitude of all that everybody has shared and what this platform now has begun to mean. Thank you very much.
Yeah, second time the word gratitude. Payal said that, that she hasn't learned from her father, how you can live in gratitude every day. Gurmeet Arora, which I have to say Arora since Sethi is also there. It was very unfair that you had to only introduce Gaurav. And you have a relation that goes back some 25 years with him. But you only have about 3 sentences for you to say what you want to say. Over to you.
Well, Dr. Jain has been my guru and mentor, and I met him in 1992. And since then, I've always tried to touch his feet, but whenever I go to touch his feet, he hugs me. And he has taught me to love others, to be humble. I, for some time in my own business, had got a lot of ego. We were growing. But Dr. Jain brought down my ego and made me into a very humble human being. And even now, I'm very emotional, where tomorrow I take over the IGPC chairmanship from my another mentor, Suresh Saab. And it is Dr. Jain's blessings. Very difficult to fill these big shoes left by Parshuraman, Dr. Jain, and B. Suresh, and you all know the contribution that they have put in. But I'm sure he's somewhere smiling, feeling happy. I've always treated him like a father. I have spent more birthdays with him than my own very own dad, by the way. My dad also at home complains because I'm always working. I'm a workaholic. But Dr. Jain's birthday was on 26 January, and I told Payal that he always took away my holiday on 26 Jan. And we used to always enjoy the sarson ka saag and the makki ki roti. The not so cold at that time, 26 Jan. This time it was very cold, as we know. And once I told Dr. Jain, that we smuggled in some liquor also. Rajneesh is here. We are all on 26 Jan in his birthday, and we hid it. But I told him later because I was very close to him, and I was in charge of also bringing the ilachi. So every time Dr. Jain would come, everyone was popping in an ilachi in the mouth. So we have had some very good memories. I cannot express.
You must have been what, 24 or 25 when you first met Geeta? Right.
Well, I'm 59 now, so 91, 92.
30 years. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. When he was in his old spectral office, and they used to have, 2 groups.
Okay.
Wale and Niche Wale.
Thank you. I just thought I will, request you to speak since you go back a long time. Prem Jain, over to you for calling the curtains. What a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for everybody here. The afternoon was so distinguished. Thanks again, I think, to the people who breathed life into it. Payal Jain, go to you.
I don't have anything left to say. I mean, I'm just I'm mesmerized. How and this is how I have grown up believing that everything comes full circle and it's all connected. So whether it was Jainism or Buddhism or food or culture or textile or India, us as Indians, our heritage and sustainability, they all are so connected. I'm learning more about Jainism now, and I can so clearly connect all of those dots. But this is something I've grown up with. I think every Indian, green sustainability is in our DNA. We just have to find it. Like Gaurav said, we have forgotten it, come back to it. And I'm hoping the students who've been listening today will follow that path. So I just have to say thank you. I mean, so gratitude.
You talked about the family, the IGBC family, or I'm saying Payal Jain, the Prem Jain family, which are either way, look at the numbers of people. There is from Jaipur, you got both of them, Oberoi is there. There are numbers of them. From Mysore, we have some 3-4 of them. Everywhere, there are about 27, 28 cities sitting and listening there and resonating with these voices, with these thoughts that each of us shared here.
And genuinely, Doctor, this is family.
Gemini is writing in and saying it's extremely beautifully done, and everyone has summarized it well, he says. So a lot of them writing in, you can see that. I think we don't have very much. I
will say thank you to Dr. Hariharan for being our Sutradhar.
No, that's okay.
For the afternoon, thank you for being so gracious and taking us through everything. Thank you. And thank you everybody for being here.
Really. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. We should now sign off. Thank you so much. Yeah. So then we call it.
If you want to record this again for next year.
I know. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Viren Paul, everybody. Thank you so much, dear. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.